Dustin and George, welcome to Dads with Mics. How's it going, guys?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
Very excited to be here.
So excited to have you guys on. I told you guys offline, I'm a big fan of the Present Fathers podcast. Been watching it for a while. Dustin has been on a couple of times. George, this is your first time. So, yeah, we won't get into that, but
I had to pay Rem a lot of money, and I don't think it was worth it. So he paid the price.
he's been begging me to come back on the show. So here we are. George, let's start with you because we know enough about Dustin by now, probably a little bit too much actually. So give us a bit of a background on you, my friend.
Yeah, man. So my name's George Hayworth. I am married, creeping up on 11 years now. Our daughter just turned 9. Just a girl dad. Don't have any more kids. Live near Nashville, Tennessee. Run the Present Fathers podcast here with Dustin. Former active duty Army, National Guard now, and on top of that, I run a coaching program for men called Elite Sentinel Coaching. So I think that's me in a nutshell.
Wow, that's awesome. Dustin, give us a little reminder who you are.
Yes, so I'm your resident Florida man. I did not bring
Florida.
I did not bring the alligator background like I did last time. Obsessed with rockets, and I live right next to where all the Falcon launches go out of, so it's really cool. 3 times a week, I look up in the sky, there's another rocket. Super cool. My son is 4 years old. I have a daughter on the way in December. I've been married to my wife. I think George and I are within a week of each other, right? Because my anniversary is in May.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're both coming up on 11 years soon. So. Couple of happy marriages, doing well, and I've been doing the Present Fathers podcast with George for 3 years. Total game changer, I think, for both of us. We're better men, better fathers, better husbands. There's nothing like having conversations with other great men to really level up your game.
Yeah, it's like a master class every time you do one of these with just, in a lot of cases, some of the best people to be talking to about being better. So yeah. It's awesome.
I think we've interviewed the only 5 dads in Canada so far. So, Rem, you're the last one that
we have actually had quite a few Canadians. It is kind of funny.
We have, yeah, a ton
Really?
of them.
I thought you guys hated us.
No, you guys are full of wisdom. It's hard to get hockey sticks down in Florida. They're just not stocked very well. So I need my Canadian connections to get the hockey sticks sent down to Florida.
I forgot to ask you this last time. Do you know who won the Stanley Cup this year?
It was a Florida team, right? Wasn't it the?
At least you know that. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know how Florida got good at hockey, but we had the Lightning for a couple of years, the Panthers. So that's got to be really tough as a Montreal. It's the Expos, right? Is the hockey team up there? Is that the
close? That's the Montreal Canadiens.
Okay,
that's the MLB, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I don't know. You guys haven't won a Stanley Cup, so long. It's hard to remember.
Since '93, but thanks for bringing that up.
Who's counting?
Who's counting?
At least you're not a Cowboys fan like Dustin, so
let's go Cowboys! This is our year. Is
that baseball?
That's tennis. It's a tennis team. Yeah, it's the.
So we are now
Cowboys.
at year 25 of saying this is our year,
Which means we're due. It's coming.
Quarter of a century. All right, we've derailed your podcast enough. Sorry, we are the worst guests in the world.
We're
much better hosts.
Well, I'm getting that so far, but that's okay.
At least for Dustin.
Guys, we have more than one thing in common besides the fact that we're all dads. We all host a podcast.
That's right.
You mentioned it. You're hosting the Present Fathers podcast. Can you guys tell me, first of all, how did you guys meet each other?
Yeah. Dustin, I'll start and you fill in the gaps. How about that? So our 2 other co-hosts are twin brothers. I have known them 20 years? I don't know. We were like high school nerds playing video games on the internet, and that's how we became friends. So fast forward another maybe 10 years, and Justin was your neighbor in Atlanta, right, Dustin? And then I came to visit. I had like a 4-day pass for 4th of July one year, I think was the first time we met. 2014 is what I want to say.
Good memory.
I think it was 2014. Mm-hmm. So we've known each other a decade. And it was like instant. Did we just become best friends? So the 4 of us have stayed in touch. Like we text every single day, basically that entire period of our life. So we've kind of been, like our little go to war group for each other, and we decided that, we need to do something. So I don't want to allude too far ahead, but Dustin, did I miss any, key points of how we met?
Yeah, we hung out at Justin's wedding. I remember doing that.
Oh, yeah.
There
Okay.
were a lot of chest bumps and just ridiculous stuff like that.
Yes.
It's just a chemistry that you have with some guys, and you realize, okay, this is someone I'm going to be friends with, and that's
It
a
was
cool.
love at first sight.
It was, yeah. I looked into his eyes, and we
Romance
gave.
at first sight, yes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
for those who can't tell, you see, I'm standing right now, so I look bigger than Dustin for the first time in my life. But he's almost a foot taller than me, and like at least 60 pounds bigger too. So it's pretty hilarious to see like me and Dustin like side by side. So that was part of it too. Is like, see, I'm such a small guy. I need to just have this massive friend that I could like threaten people with and be like, okay, stay in line. Or no, I'm kidding.
You got a very tall personality, so it works out.
I have a bit, yes. See, God kept me small because if my personality was in Dustin's body, I'd probably be in prison now. So
That's exactly.
it's a good thing that I have something to keep me humble, you know.
Yeah.
So which one of you got married first?
It's within a week.
I think
or just-
maybe me because we did the courthouse thing. We kind of cheated. I was active duty. 2013 is when we got married in October,
Okay.
and then our actual wedding was, I think, the same weekend as your wedding.
Yeah, we're May 31st, 2014.
Yeah, so we're the 25th. May 25th is
Yeah,
when we
so you're
had
a week
like, our
ahead.
actual
Okay.
wedding. But legally, we tied the knot 6 months prior.
And you also synced having kids?
We did, yeah.
Is
No,
that-
you were quite a bit earlier
No.
to it.
Yeah, I started that a lot sooner than Dustin. My daughter's 9. Your son is 4. You said.
Yeah.
So
mhm.
Okay.
5
5 in
gap there.
January.
And so you've been living in different cities for a while now, I guess, right?
Yeah, we've never lived in the same city.
Oh, you never lived in the same city?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did it come about that you guys were, because I know you, at some point, the four of you were talking to each other, giving each other advice for parenting. How did that come about?
So it was Justin's idea. He's always he's got a lot of grand ideas. He's our idea guy. You know, he'll throw stuff out there, and sometimes you're like, no. But this was a really good idea. We're like, okay, that's actually because George, you already had some background in streaming. You kind of understood the whole process
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah.
you said, I'll just throw this together, no big deal. I got, I think, a $10 like microphone camera. I was bad, like, you know, and every like 6 months I'll upgrade. I'll get something a little bit better. You know, okay, I can justify this. So now I've actually got a pretty decent camera. But yeah, at the time I was speaking into my laptop speaker, and I mean, it was, you know, it's funny. People say, "Oh, let me see your first episode." I'm like, let's skip to episode 20. Yeah,
Go to like go to like 20, 21, you know, somewhere around there. It's a lot better.
Yeah, it gets better. So yeah, initially we just chatted. We had these marathon 3-hour long conversations, and they were good. You know, they gave us a lot of ideas. We had a lot of fun with it. We got a flow and a chemistry. It's kind of like when a football team has guys that know each other really well. They play better than a bunch of superstars that don't understand each other. It's the same with this. We have a really natural flow now where we know who's going to jump in. We don't mind if someone cuts us off because we know we'll have our chance later. There's not this pecking order. You'll see some podcasts hosted by multiple people where it's uncomfortable. You can tell they're both fighting to get to the mic, and it's not great. So I think we have a really nice flow. And if I'm out, I'm on an off day, you know, I just jumped off work, I'm exhausted, I'll ask 2 questions the whole time and pretty much coast, and George and Brandon will jump in. And, you know, so it's having that backup is amazing. We had Chrisman on last week. My internet went out because they didn't want us to talk to Chrisman, right? They were trying to shut down the podcast. And
That's right.
so no internet, no power. And I'm like, great, are you kidding me? So I'm out for about 10 minutes. You're toast in that situation here, Phil, but we had all 3 of us, so it flowed really
we just kept
nicely. I
rolling.
jumped back in, not a big deal. Yeah, so
That's right.
this is something I don't think, George, you might have. You're pretty motivated, but as far as like I don't think we would have stuck with this if it wasn't a group project like this where we're able to really help each other out.
Yeah, so I was just going to add, like, the reason why we started wasn't just like, oh, hey, let's just have a podcast. It was, we were really sick of like the direction of our country going. This was like 21, end of 2021 time frame. And we were like, okay, this is just getting so out of hand. Or I guess it was more like 22. And we were like, we got to do something. Like, our culture is going to like hell in a handbasket. Like, let's do something that we can do that's positive. We're like, limited resources, limited time. We're all busy dads. What can we do? Well, we can record some podcast episodes. And if we just help one dad be a better dad, that's going to make a very positive impact in at least one family's life. So let's just start there. And like Dustin alluded to, very humble beginnings, just kind of started trying to find our groove, continuous improvement, get a little bit better every time. And we've been very blessed to have just basically a nonstop flow of guests who are, I mean, just amazing people. Pretty much every single guest I get is like, ooh, I learned something today. And I think that's a big component of why we've stuck with this too is I think we've helped a lot of people. I think we put out a really good message. We give a lot of practical advice for men. Men need action, right? We can talk and wax, philosophical all day, but we need like tactical things to do. And I think we give a good amount of that, especially through our guests who are like, hard-hitting experts on different fields. But it's also for us. Like, I'm getting hours with some of the best people in the planet about all these various topics of being a better man and husband and father. And I'm like, dude, I can't get enough. This is like free training where if I'm aware enough, I can take all this and improve myself. So that's been a huge kind of addictive experience from doing the podcast, is how much we get out of it too. So it's kind of just wins all around, and I love it.
Yeah, that's how it started for me. It's so funny what you're saying, because I could definitely relate to that. At first, for me, I started out my podcast because in real life, I don't have really a circle of friends where I can have this sort of conversation. Mm-hmm. It's just, it kind of like just friends you have beers with type of thing.
Right.
And I was just tired of having the same old dad conversations at barbecues or birthday parties, guys complaining about their kids and their wives and saying stuff like, oh, I haven't slept since my firstborn. And all that talk, I just got so sick of it. And I had to turn online at some point. And I found this vast online community of fathers posting online. And I couldn't believe, I had no idea this was going on X or anywhere on social media. And then I met a whole bunch of people, made a lot of connections, and having these conversations just like right now, that's like the highlight of my week in terms of the content producing and all that stuff, because I don't have that in real life. Was that sort of the same for you, or do you have those guys in real life where you could just sort of sit down and say, you know what, I had a rough week with my kids. I lost it on Monday, and I've been feeling bad ever since. Can you have those conversations in real life?
Yeah, so I think 2 points, and then Dustin, you take it next. With our group of 4, I think we have those conversations. We've been having those conversations for a very long time. So, I know I could call Dustin with anything going on in my life. He's going to take the call when he's able, and he's going to be there for me. But to your point, I think more men need to do exactly what you did. Maybe you don't start a podcast, but you need to go connect with other guys, because most dudes are completely alone. I think so. I've been saying it's over 70%. A friend corrected me, actually. He found the stats on this. It's almost 90%. It's like 86% of men don't have a single close friend in America. That blows my mind. So 86% of American men are just walking around suffering in isolation. Even if it's just an internet friendship, that is going to help you, man, because guys understand each other. You know each other's core, and you're going to be able to build a friendship in a way that actually lets you put down your burdens and get some support. And if you don't have that, man, you're just going to swirl down to a very, very, very dark path. So good on you, man, for like taking it upon yourself and modeling that, because that's how you build real brotherhood. It doesn't have to be this big macho rah-rah thing like we're going to go fight a war together or something. It can just be like, hey, dude, I'm tired of talking about sports and beer. Can we I don't know, how do I be a better husband today? Dude, what did you think about this? Oh, great, thank you. That is super powerful. And it may not seem like a lot, but it is. That stuff starts to sink in your mind, and it reconditions you on how to just be better all around. And then you feel better because now you are operating at a higher level. So I'm rambling a little bit. Dustin, I want you to answer that one as well.
The experience I've had is that the majority of men that I speak with definitely don't believe that change is possible. If they're overweight, they don't think it's possible to actually lose weight. They see stories of it happening, but they think it's a personal trainer that did it. It's something that's beyond their means. They don't think that their failed marriage can be improved. They don't think that their kids who don't respect them can start to love them again. There's just this hopelessness that kind of sets in, and it's so common. And it's unfortunate, because I really think it would just take one friend to break that mold and say, hey, I've been there. It was really tough. Here's the things that worked for me. You should try this. But it's very hard to have that conversation and tell someone in a non-judgmental way, this is on you, man. You're the reason things aren't going well. It's not because your wife is mean. Yeah. It's because you stopped giving her a reason to respect you. And that's a tough conversation to have in person, right? At a barbecue. You will get thrown out of that barbecue. The guy will throw hamburgers at you. You don't want to do that, right? But you could do it online. You can have that conversation in DMs. In the right environment, you can really show someone how change is possible if you really want it. And most of the men that I know in real life don't have marriages that they're super excited about. They don't have relationships with their children that everything is great. there's a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. And most of us, by the time we hit, 30, 40 years old, are very set in our ways. There's this interesting gambler's fallacy that I love, where addicted gamblers, they did fMRI studies in their brains to see what lights up. And so the pleasure centers for gamblers light up when they lose, and they don't light up when they win. So it's the opposite of what should be. And the reason is, men especially, we love to be right. So even if it's really bad, if it's like, hey, you just lost all your money, I was right, I knew it, the house is against me, I'm right, I'm super smart, and the system is just unfair, right? Dopamine like crazy. But if it's like, oh, that's weird that I won, I thought I was a loser, that's what I told myself, then there's no joy there because it violates your preconceived notions. So as men, a lot of us like to complain. A lot of us like to say the world is unfair. My wife doesn't like me. My kids are jerks. And that, ironically, is this cloak that we wrap ourselves in. And it's very satisfying because I'm right and the world is unfair. And to change that, even in a positive way, would violate their notions. And so we don't want to change. It's this bizarre human desire to not change. And so we have to get past that.
Right, and I don't know what it is, how it happened culturally that we're like in a mindset of complaining all the time. And it just happened to me today. I was at the office, and this guy that I don't usually sit with, he sat next to me, and he was saying, "Hey, Rem, you have kids, right?" And I said, "Yeah, 2 of them." And he says, "Oh, how old are they?" I said, 6 and 4. And then he says, "My sympathies." Just kidding. But like this is just the perfect example of, and then he goes on and he says, "Oh, wait until your kids are teenagers. It's hell." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I think I'll be fine. But what's going on? Let me know what's happening." And then he goes on about how his kid's not talking to him, and he's 20 years old, and he doesn't want anything to do with him. And it's fine that he wanted to maybe to vent. I'm open to that. I'm a great listener, and I don't mind listening to people complain about stuff as long as they're not projecting onto me their problems. And that's where I took issue with him today. Mm-hmm. Was that he was saying, "Oh, well, yeah, okay, so it's fun now, and you're having an awesome time with your kids, but wait until they're teens." No, man, maybe I'm doing things right, and maybe you didn't do things so well, and this is how it turned out. But it's incredible, and I posted about it today on X, and it didn't go viral or anything, but a lot of people a couple of people got triggered and saying like, "Oh, maybe he was just trying to have a conversation with you, and since you have that in common." And I'm like, I think there's a better way to do that.
No, can I tell you what I think is really going on?
Please.
There? Yeah, so this is what guys do, is they convince themselves, to Dustin's point, oh, the world's against me, blah, blah, blah. There's zero ownership in everything he said, right? It's, oh, my kid's not talking to me, they're 20, blah, blah, blah. He's still a victim, right? This all happened to me. There's zero awareness of himself for what was his contribution to the fact that things are the way they are. So men, all the men listening, whatever the state of your life, your marriage, the relationships with your kids, is what you've earned. It's what you have earned. Good, that means you put in the work to earn a good outcome. Bad, on you, bro. Look in the mirror. The sooner that men stop embracing victim mentality and reject it violently, like has zero place in your life, is the day that your life changes. But until then, you will never grow. You will never lose weight. You will never get better. It is impossible to actually change yourself if you still cling to this, woe is me, they did it to me. And I'm not downplaying hardship. I'm certain that most of the guys listening to this have had some really crappy things happen to them, or a lot of really crappy things happen to them. I hear you. I do. The only way out is through. And Dustin and I have interviewed people on our show that, we have heard some trauma, bro. Like, I'm okay with my stuff after hearing some of that. Yeah, okay, my stuff's not so bad.
Like lost both of his arms in an industrial accident kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and still is a great
and not
dad.
a single one of them has any victimhood. Never, not even 1 ounce. And that's why they are having great lives, despite the hardships. And so I just don't think that they're special people. Because in many ways, no offense to them, they're unremarkable. They're just an average guy like you and me. Right. But because they reject victimhood, they've been able to build something of themselves despite the hardships. So poking you guys in the chest, listening, nut up or shut up. Like, it's on you. There is no one's come to save you. And that victimhood is keeping you stuck. This guy that you're describing, he's a victim. I smelled it the second you started talking about, oh, my sympathies. That's what victims do. Great, strong men don't ever do that kind of thing. They'd be like, oh, dude, awesome. Tell me about your kids.
Dustin, I'm curious. How would you have reacted? You were me, and this guy's just laying it on you, complaining. My
I was just going to ask.
reaction.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you guys the same thing. So if you're stuck in a victim mentality, that's not the kind of person. He's in the pre-contemplation phase. He's not ready to change. And so I would be banging my head against a wall. And Nick Kumalautsos, one of our favorite guests, is a Marine Raider. I asked him a question: how do you help a guy who doesn't want to be helped? And what did he say? He said, I don't help them. I don't waste my time with them.
I tell them the truth, and I don't help them.
I tell them the truth, and I don't help them. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That was it.
Which a lot of people would say is toxic, right? It's a that's toxic masculinity. It's not. At some point, I think if people are hit with the truth enough, you give them the opportunity to maybe change. And they may never change, but you did your best to at least make that happen. But they're going to drag you down if you get in there with them and say, oh, yeah, it's terrible. You're right. If that's not good either, because then it justifies what he's saying. Let me just go attack other people, who have kids. So I think by kind of going, okay, man, whatever, and then kind of moving on, you probably did the right thing, Rem, because jumping in there and trying to go, savior complex him, and I'm gonna fix this guy.
Yeah,
he's not getting fixed anytime soon. He's gonna have to fix himself.
You have to hold them in an open hand, right? Like, hey, bro, happy to help you, but you gotta jump in. I mean, you gotta
want the help.
You can't. Yeah, and so that's the thing. I know people say it sounds cruel and like, oh, well, you should try and get through. Yeah, but at what cost then? Because now I'm wasting my energy and I'm getting frustrated, and then I'm gonna go home and now I'm a pissed off guy, and the people that you're surrounding yourself with is just draining you instead of pouring into you. And guys who are really serious about wanting help, even if they've got all kinds of problems, but they have enough humility to be like, you know what, man, okay, I need the help. What do I do? That guy will change his life, and it'll happen in 6 months. He'll be a new man in less than a year. But the guy who has all the excuses and all the things, he's convinced himself that nothing's going to work, and so why would anyone waste their time with him? And that's how the world works. It just is. There's no way around it. This is a black and white thing.
Yeah.
It's just how the world works. If you are willing and demonstrate a little bit of humility, people will jump through fire for you. But until then, it's not going to happen.
So, guys, I'll ask both of you, what percentage of men at any given point do you think are ready to make some sort of positive change, any change? Is it 50%? Is it 80%? Is it 10%?
I'd say closer to 10.
Yeah, I'd say less than 20, probably.
It's pretty rare to see someone who's in a good place. But if you find that person and you can tell they want to change and they're, like you said, humble enough to accept that, that's someone you want to jump on. It is addictive when you see someone who levels up and improves their life.
Well, it's your responsibility.
That is the greatest feeling. Yeah.
If you're in a place where you have goodness and you're in a strong season of life or whatever, it's your responsibility to help your fellow man, the willing ones, the ones who are hungry for your mentorship. That is what good men do. You make yourself available to those who are worthy of it. And people are going to twist the word worthy. They've demonstrated enough willingness to actually receive. Because otherwise, it's like you're taking your precious little thing and you're throwing it into the dirt, and that's not good for anyone. That's where bitterness sets in.
My initial reaction was to try to offer some sort of guidance because he was just complaining. But the minute I realized, okay, Rem, this is not going anywhere, just drop it, is when I told him, oh, well, maybe did you just try a different approach? And then he cut me off right away and said, oh, yeah, I tried all the different approaches, being nice, being interested in his hobbies. Yep. And then he just shut me down right away. And then I knew, oh, okay, let's just keep listening until he's done venting, and then let's wrap this up,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an old Monty Python episode where it's like, we've tried nothing and nothing has worked, sir. I don't understand.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing, man. I think so many guys are stuck in that exact mindset. It used to be a meme and now it's reality. It used to be a Monty Python joke, and I think that's actually the programming that most men are running in their heads today. And, oof, man, what a bad place to be.
And here's the magic of social media, right? If you bump into 100 men, maybe only 5 of them are ready to change. But if you have an audience of 10,000 people you're talking to, there's a good chance on any given day a couple of guys shoot you a DM and say, hey, your message really resonated. How can I learn more? How can I be better? Happens all the time. And that's amazing because you find that 5 or 10% of people who are willing to take on that mantle and be better dads and be better men.
Well, that leads me to my next question, and I really wanted to ask both of you. I mean, I want to really like hear your thoughts on this, because I've always thought, and I actually dedicated a whole episode with it's a guy called the Evolved Dad on X, and it was one of the first episodes, and the topic was, should everyone have kids? And my opinion, real quick, is that no, it's not for everyone. And a lot of people, and again, I posted about this on X, and a lot of people were telling me, no, everyone should have kids, and it'll change you. And my point was that, well, some people have issues, and, unless you work on those, maybe you should wait. And they're like, no, 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 no. If you have kids, then you'll work on those issues, and it'll transform you. So what do you guys think? George, let's start with you.
Okay. So having kids is a privilege, not a right. I think the fact that people believe they deserve that just shows how arrogant and self-centered our entire culture is. It is the ultimate responsibility. It is the hardest decision to make. It's the one that is going to impact you the most outside of who you pick to marry. And it is something you have to pour yourself into. It's a long-term investment, and most people treat it as a short-term little, dopamine hit. Having a kid should be something you are very intentional about, right? It's not this willy-nilly thing or an oops, right? If you're wanting to become a first-time parent, that should be a very intentional decision. You should be able to provide for this child, and it's not about being perfect, but you should be in a place where you can actually do well. And this is where having brotherhood is so important, having other men around you who can actually talk to you for real about what's really going on, to make sure that you can handle things like postpartum and get support. And you need to be intentional about these things, because otherwise you're bringing a life into this world and you haven't prepared for it. And quite frankly, I think it's the ultimate failure to do that. It's the most selfish thing you could do. And so no, not everyone should have kids, because most people aren't actually ready for it. When I say ready, basic level of preparation and intention behind it. No one's really ready to be a parent, I don't think. But right. To the second point, I absolutely believe that the greatest men are fathers, because when you become a dad, it unlocks a higher level of leadership potential that you just simply don't have until you learn things like empathy and compassion by caring for your own child. I'm a military guy. I've served with a lot of different people, leaders of all shapes and sizes. And the absolute best leaders that I'd soak bullets for are all fathers. The guys who didn't have kids, who were never married and all that kind of stuff, there's a level of arrogance about them. There's a level of self-centeredness that, quite frankly, it limits their ability to lead. So I believe that wholeheartedly, and I know it probably ruffles a lot of feathers, but I'm not here to appease the masses. I'm here to find the seekers, like we talked about earlier, the guys who actually want to change their lives. So that's my hard and fast view of that.
Nice.
My purpose as a man completely changed after I had my son. I looked into his eyes when we first met. I wasn't particularly religious, and I've found God since then. It was really spending time with my son and learning about him that has deepened my relationship in my faith. And that, in addition to trying to build a legacy through my son, I'm a very different person than I was 10 years ago. I'm less selfish. I'm more interested in helping people. I'm more excited about the future. That may have happened anyways, but I'm pretty sure that was a direct result of becoming a father. So if at all possible, I believe that men should strive to become a father. It's a whole different game. I'm not playing a game of what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. I'm thinking about my grandkids, right? You're building a legacy. It's magic. It's a really beautiful thing. So if you can have that, I think you absolutely should if you're in the position. That being said, a lot of us are not in a good place. If I'd had a child when I was 16 years old, it would have markedly hurt my life. I would not have been ready. I would not have been able to provide for that child well, and I would not have set myself up for success either. I don't know what would have happened, but I'm very glad that I was able to wait and become a father a little bit later in life. If I could have started at 25 and had 10 kids, might have been a different life. I have some friends that have done that, and it's kind of cool, but not the path that I took, and that's okay. So I'm with George. I don't think everyone should become a father. We owe our children everything and they owe us nothing is one of my favorite quotes, right? Because they didn't ask to be born. We brought them into the world intentionally. Yeah. And so it's our job to make sure that we do the best possible job for them. Now, should we expect things of them? Of course, right? We have expectations, and the more we expect of them, the better they do. I gave my son all these fun little chores today. I made him pump the gas. I had him go pick stuff out. Anytime we go to a store together, I'm not buying anything. I give him my wallet and I say, figure it out. And he's 4 and he's pretty good at it, Now he ends up buying stuff. He's taken advantage of a few times. He'll grab a packet of M&Ms and buy it. And I'm like,
genius.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you got to be careful with that. But he's learning and he's taking on these chores and these responsibilities, and he's a better little boy for it. So I would love to see every man be able to be a father, but that's just not possible. Some of us just aren't in the right place for it.
I think it takes a special kind of man to become a father, or maybe not special, but if I have to think of one trait that I think is absolutely necessary for a father, to me, it's emotional regulation. That's one of the biggest ones for me. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it. But for me, I think that's the best way to model the right behavior for our kids is if they see you in control. If you're on the phone, on the customer service line, and you've been pushed around left and right from department to department, nobody's answering you, nobody's helping you, and you start cursing, and your kids are in the living room, they hear you, or you punch a hole in the wall because of something that happened at work today, how do you think that looks? And you can't expect your kids to be in control of their emotions if you're not in control yourself. Mm-hmm. That's why I always talk a lot about emotional regulation, and I think that's one of the top traits and qualities that a father needs. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it. George, go ahead.
So I'll quote my good friend Nick Lavery. I'm wearing his hat right here. When he was on our podcast, he said, emotional regulation is the differentiator between top performers and average performers. And he was saying, he was initially talking with special operations, right? He's a Green Beret. And so he's saying if he's like, as a leader in Green Berets, that's what we look for most, is the dudes who have the most emotional regulation, not necessarily the dude who's the best shooter or the best whatever. And then he extrapolated, now think about how important that is for fatherhood, right? So if it matters that much to special operations, doing some of the hardest things on earth, how much more should it matter in our day-to-day with our kids? And to your point, this is where like leading by example comes into play. If you're a loose cannon all the time and then you're getting mad at your kids because they're acting out at school or whatever, you're a hypocrite. This is why no one wants to follow men today, is because most of us are hypocrites. And it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. You own them when you do, and then you teach how to overcome those things. But emotional regulation or stoicism, whatever you want to call it, is, I think, the true mark of a real man. A man who can really lean into that and actually control his emotions and respond, not react, is really the complete man. And he may not make a lot of money, he may not do a lot of things, but that's the guy that people want to be around because he's a strong presence, right? They know that he will keep his head despite what's going on.
Dustin, what do you think?
Yeah, a consistent friend is better than a high and low friend, right? I mean, when you're on a roller coaster with somebody, it's not a lot of fun. You want someone you know is going to show up and is going to give you something. And it's the same as a father. I had a moment last week. I was angry in traffic, and my son from the back said, "Now take a deep breath, Dad." And I almost died.
Man,
I deserve
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Breathe in through your nose and out there. So he has these techniques he uses for his own emotional regulation. And as a dad, someone's going to cut you off in traffic. You're going to curse at them. It's going to happen, right? But there's a couple things you need to do. One, tell your child, Daddy's not perfect. This happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. Here's how we recover from that. And so they learn, okay, when I'm in school and someone steals my toy, now I know how to recover from that and be better. And so the recovery is really the key with the emotional regulation. So a lot of people think of stoicism as just this blank. That's not what it is at all. It's about how you respond to situations. And so your response is absolutely key. And yes, a little bit of emotion and intensity is fine initially, but it's important to regulate that afterwards. And if you don't know how to do that, talk to some other men who do, because it's like being good at tennis or hockey or a real sport like football, all very simple thing. I mean, you're probably triggered right now, right? I have to say these horrible things, but
I'm regulating my emotions right now.
Yeah, I'm so proud. Excellent. You're doing an amazing job.
Excellent.
Yeah. But so your wife, your children, they're gonna push you. They're gonna find your buttons. They're gonna try to trigger you, and it's your job, one, to recognize I'm not a victim. This is just part of life, and two, to prepare for it. Talk to friends. Talk to mentors. Go on YouTube. take a yoga class, whatever it is that you need to do to learn how to emotionally regulate. We have this very American concept, and I'll give some credit to Canadians for this. Many Americans believe that showing rage, showing anger is this very masculine, very tough thing, right? If I'm really screaming at people and I'm, kind of thing, that makes me a real man, right?
You're defending yourself.
You're defending yourself. You're a little boy if you're doing that. If you scream at your children, you are a little boy and you need to do better. Stop screaming at your kids. Never hit your kids. That's another step beyond that, right? There's never any time, and I've yelled at my son before. I have. I'm not perfect. But when I did it, it was my fault. It was not his. He did something pretty normal for a 2 or 3 year old boy, and he 100% did not deserve to be yelled at. He's not a bad boy who needs that. That was on me. I fixed my behavior. I told him I'm sorry, and we got through it. But if you keep doing it over and over, you keep yelling, and then you say, little Timmy, I yelled at you because you're a bad boy, you're going to pass on generational trauma.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a bitter pill to swallow, but don't do that. Don't yell at your kids. Don't hit your kids. Find a way to control yourself.
Yeah. Can I add one quick thing, too?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this also goes to all the married men, right? If you are emotionally dysregulated often, you're getting angry all the time, you're getting frustrated all the time, that's why your wife's not having sex with you, because you're not safe. The number one thing she looks for is how safe you are emotionally, right? Security is their number one need, right? Financial, physical, emotional. And so if you're a loose cannon all the time and you're just blowing up on everything, there is no way she can trust you enough to open up her body to you and go to bed with you. It's not going to happen. So check yourself on that. If you're not having the sex life you want in your marriage, that's probably a good starting point, is to analyze this one thing and start gaining some composure over it, because it really lowers the tension in your home, and she will start to trust you more and actually want to be with you and build connection with you.
And that's a virtuous circle. It's easier to not be rage-filled when you're having more sex. So it's a win-win.
Helps a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Helps, definitely. That's a great point, though. And it leads me to my next question. A lot of guys, the first excuse that they come up with when we talk about working on ourselves is, oh, I don't have time for that. Right? And
It's my favorite objection.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to point to guys like you because, and Dustin's first episode on Dads with Mics was perfect because we spoke about the life of a busy father. Dustin's a busy guy. George, you sound like you're a busy guy too. You guys have a lot of things going on. So, look, let's go one by one. Like, what do you got going on in your life, career-wise, hobbies, activities, time with family? And so, like, just maybe sort of inspire people that are listening to this and saying, oh, I don't have time to work out, or I don't have time to go volunteer, or I don't have time to date my wife. How do you guys respond to that? And, let's start by, giving people a little bit of a background at what you got going on a weekly basis.
Okay. Who you want to go first?
George, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. All right. I got a lot. Get ready. So married, got a kid. I'm part-time in the National Guard. I'm launching a small business. I still have a corporate job as of this recording. I do all the editing and manage the podcast. I'm guest on podcasts all the time. I'm an associate coach in the Forge with Nick Lavery, where I do this kind of thing and coach people and mentor them. I have 7 one-on-one clients that I do one-on-one coaching with. I work out 6 days a week. Date my wife all the time. We go out to lunch, dinners, all that kind of stuff. Take my daughter to most of her sporting events and take her to school almost every single day. I think that's it. Got it.
Wow. Okay.
I counted 714 hours a week.
You're really good at multitasking.
Yeah. How much Netflix do you watch every week, George?
I watched this week 5 hours of The Gentleman. That's the most TV I've watched in a very long time. It's like the first thing I've sat down and actually watched in quite a while.
Nice. How do you make all that happen? Well, how do you multitask? How do you organize yourself?
So when people say, oh, I don't have the time, if you showed me your calendar, I can rip you to shreds in about 5 minutes. If you honestly gave me your calendar, I would show you all the space you're wasting. Here's number one, that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you, if you look at the amount of time you're doom scrolling Instagram, that's 2 hours back right there. There's your workouts and your nutrition. And to be fair, a lot of guys they work shift work or whatever. Okay, you've got a rough schedule. I acknowledge that. Okay. even within that, I have clients who live in that world. They do shift work. They have very tight schedules. They're busy professionals or they're blue collar workers. We find the margins with things they don't need to be doing that don't bring them any benefit, and they replace it with a 30-minute workout that's simple enough they can do it. Like, I got a guy who he's on the road 5 days a week. He's like on calls to jobs all the time. He can't just like go to a gym. He's living out of hotels. So we're doing body weight workouts. We're dialing in his nutrition. He's lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. His marriage is on fire. When he gets home, he takes his wife out on a date, all this kind of stuff. So it's small reprioritizations in the margins of your schedule. And this is where our world lives in the just keep giving to everyone else. There's no boundaries. You have to disappoint people. Hey, no, we're not going to that thing this weekend. Sorry, man. Well, what do you mean? Well, because quite frankly, we need a date night. So we're not going to your thing. Sorry. You got to be comfortable with telling other people no, because what's happening is you're eating yourself up, you're eating your family up for the expense of all these other things. So if you have a rough job that's really demanding, okay, then you have less time for hobbies. You have more time. You have to make more time for the really important things, building relationship with your wife and kids.
Awesome. Dustin?
So my work days, I get up at 5, drive for an hour to get to work, start surgery at 6:30, finish surgeries hopefully around 7, typically a little bit later, maybe 8 o'clock at night, get home around 9. Those are not great days to get a whole lot done. That's tough. I try to exercise while I'm at work, but I just don't have the opportunity to prioritize time with family and all that. The days that I have off, I do have some opportunities to work out, to spend quality time with my son, to take my wife out on dates, to do podcasts, all those kinds of things. But it's the margins. It's the television. It's the doom scrolling. All of those things are big, but the really big one for a lot of guys as well is marijuana use, is alcohol use. If you spend most of your weekends recovering from a hangover, think about how much you could get done during that day. I mean, we're talking about 8, 12 hours a week of just feeling terrible, having a headache. I've had one hangover during the 4 years that I've had my son. It was the worst day of my life. He sensed weakness. He said, "Daddy, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, I just got a headache. No big deal." He's never behaved that badly ever.
There's
it was
blood
the
in the
worst.
water.
He was a shark, and he smelled it, and it was a terrible day. And my wife had no, nor should she have. I've had a couple drinks too many for, and she's laughing and going, "Wow, that sucks for you." I have not had a hangover since then, because why would I? What a terrible decision to be hungover when you have children who you can take care of and have this great relationship with, or you can be adversarial with them because you don't feel good. So much of dads' lives are filled with not feeling good and trying to recover from things they're doing to themselves. So it's not just the phone use and the television stuff. It's all the substances we put in our body as well that aren't good. And it's not just alcohol and marijuana and whatever else you're putting up your nose. It's also the food we eat, right? I mean, if you eat a bunch of garbage food, you're probably better off smoking a pack of cigarettes a day than you are eating some of the food that people eat throughout the day. If you're chugging Mountain Dews and you're doing all this other stuff, you're going to feel terrible. And I mean, sugar is very addictive. It's hard to quit, but that's another thing. So when you look at the average man's diet, both information wise and food wise, and then you tack on all the substances he's putting into his body as well, you're not going to get anything done. You're just not setting yourself, and then you're not getting any sleep. How about you get 5 hours of sleep because you're on so many stimulants to stay awake. You're 5 Monster Energy drinks in. So this is a very kind of doom and gloom kind of scenario I'm painting, but I know a lot of guys like this. They're 40 years old. They could kind of make it work when they were 25, and now they're really struggling because of all these things they're doing to themselves, and they can't figure out why. And it's like, I can tell you 7 different reasons that you don't have any time right now.
So with everything you guys just told me, I get it. I get the general picture, but how do you make the podcast happen? I get it, you're 4 guys, but I still can't. I can't see where you guys fit it in your schedules. Can you guys walk me through that? Because that's where I wanted to shift the conversation now is to the podcast, because again, like I said, I'm a big fan, and the dynamic you guys have is just amazing, and the guests you've had, I mean, top notch. But walk me through like behind the scenes, what goes on, the preparation, booking guests, who comes up with the topics and the content and all that stuff.
We've had a lot of guests just come to us, actually. We kind of hit a tipping point where that happened a lot faster than I thought. And then we'll just kind of reach out to people that we want on the show. That's honestly like getting people scheduled isn't really the hard part of anything. It's just like getting, actually showing up to be there to record. And then afterwards, it's just kind of, I'm up really early before the family is. I'm editing shorts and reels in the next episode. And, that's unfortunately part of my morning before all the work starts, or like on Saturdays or whatever, I chunk out a good little bit here and there when I can. So again, it's a priorities thing, right? So I go to bed a little bit earlier so I can wake up a little bit earlier before everyone else is awake and make this stuff happen. And eventually we'll be at a point where I'm like hiring a real team to do all this and kind of get that time back for myself. But right now I'm committed to the mission, so I'm willing to build for a couple years to make it happen, and so that mentality is where men need to start applying that in their own life with the small things, like sacrifice the 40 minutes of this so you can do 40 minutes of doing some push-ups and sit-ups. Like that is going to energize you over time a lot more than whatever it was you were doing. So yeah, that's behind the scenes podcast stuff is a lot of me just kind of nugging away editing in the dark hours of the mornings and in the evenings and stuff. But I try to do it kind of like in bursts when I have free time, where like if my family's gonna be gone for a day, okay, that's a big editing day for me because I'm not like robbing my family of my free time. You know what I mean? So I really shelter my schedule to make sure that we're making a high quality podcast with a high quality message to help men, but it's not at the expense of my family. So I just check in with my wife a lot. Hey, look, this, and this is how busy I'm going to be this week. And to that point, we have so many episodes recorded that haven't been published yet. We're going to take a break from recording new episodes for at least like 2 months. Oh, wow. And I told my wife that, hey, look, I've not been present enough. We're slowing things down, and we're probably only going to take one guest a week moving forward because it's just too much to do it, without the help.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty crazy.
It's a lot of work. And something that's helped a lot is we're okay. It used to be if it couldn't be all four of us, we weren't going to do it, right? We did about a year of that. And then we realized that was kind of holding us back. And we have all got Justin, he's got so much going on right now with 2 kids and his wife's pregnant. So he's like, it's just a crazy time for him right now. So if he's not able to make it, I get it.
2 very young kids. They're like 3 and under.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'd much rather him be present dad than
right.
just run in and try to do a podcast. He's exhausted. So yeah, and same for if I'm in surgery, I'm like, hey guys, I'm elbow deep in a colon right now. I can't. You don't want to see this. Kind of thing.
Or,
so I'm not gonna make it.
That's going to be our most watched episode. Just putting it out there.
Not a bad idea.
Worth considering.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
we'd be able to get one really good episode.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
And then you go to jail.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So that helped a lot because sometimes it's just the 2 of us like this, that'll be recording, and that's okay. We try to always give everyone the opportunity, for all 4 of us to be there. George, you've done a lot of in-person podcasts, so have I. So of course, we can't expect everyone to fly in and do that. So we have this team we can work together with, and that's our superpower is that we work together as a team. As far as getting guests, the timing on a good cold DM is everything. So George and I think we have a little friendly competition. I got this amazing guest. George is like, I got this amazing guest. And we all win together, right? Because we both get to interview them together. But there is a little bit of like, oh, okay, you got that guy, I'll get this guy. And it motivates me. If he's gotten 10 amazing guests the last couple months, I'm like, I got to step up my game. I got to get like dads with mics or someone really big to come talk on the podcast. So that's huge. And as far as approaching people with a cold DM, I thought I was going to have a 1% hit rate. I'm talking to people who have no business talking back to me. People are so incredibly friendly if you approach them with the right way. If you go, okay, what do I have in common with this guy? We're both military. George has that. You're both dads. You both have a couple people that you've interviewed, that you've both spoken together. So you've got 5 different connections, different points that you can quickly make. And then you're on their timeline as well, and you've just made a great point, and they liked and they reposted your comment. Okay, so I know they're online right now and they know me. Let's go have that conversation right now. And more often than not, I'll get a quick, you seem cool. Let's give it a shot. Show me something you've done before. And then we're able to hit them with a real quick 90-second clip of something that was really good. And they go, all right, done. I'm in. So that's really the key is timing. Because if you just shoot someone a message and go, hey, man, you seem really cool. Will you come talk on my podcast? Probably going to say no, right? But if you tie in some other elements, your odds improve dramatically. And we still get a lot of no's, a lot of ghosting. That's fine, But
Dustin does, but
You really, I mean, you're not wrong, George.
My
George
hit rate's pretty high, bro. I'm
George
at like
doesn't miss.
900. I'm like pretty up there.
ABC always be closing.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
ABC's baby. I mean, I did corporate sales for like a decade, so I've got a good amount of training about how to do that kind of thing. But look,
Helps,
here's
right?
the thing: for maybe you're not a podcaster, right? But men, if you're reaching, you need someone to mentor you or whatever, right? People recognize authenticity. Like when I reach out to these people, I'm not being like some canned thing that I've copy and pasted to whatever and just sending it to them. Like I research them. I know what matters to them. I present, what we do and why it aligns with their mission and what they're trying to accomplish. And so we have a mutual aim, and then we serve each other by like recording an episode together. But if you're looking for something else from someone, that conversation like, hey, I see what you're doing. It's awesome. I want to be like you. Will you take some time to teach me your ways? Like, yeah, dude. Awesome, dude. Let's get on a call, Because, again, you're a seeker now. That guy sees, that's a little bit of me in him. Let me help him, right? Because it feels good for that other guy, right? So to all the men listening, this belief of like, oh, well, I'm not worthy enough, or I don't have enough credentials to talk to this guy or to do these things, that's like your own limiting belief. That's all up here. That's not real. If they say no to you, what do you lose? They weren't going to talk to you anyway, right? So you might as well shoot your shot, be authentic about it. And like if it's, hey, I need help doing this thing. You look like a really capable person. Will you help me? Send it, bro. You'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you. Like I've had, maybe on one hand, I can count the number of people who are just like outright like, no, I'm not going to be on your show. You know what I mean? Like, okay, no problem.
Next.
Good men who are in a position of influence, the best feeling in the world for them is to help someone. That's
Yes.
the best feeling in the world. So if they can take 5 minutes and help you, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's a
Guys,
difference between being like an asshole, and just like a one-time thing. But if you're always in their DMs and you're just blowing them up all the time, it's like, okay, bro, like,
Right.
you settle
Ask like
down.
one favor a year, like Max.
Sure.
That's your.
Yeah. Well, and then you'll find a way that you can help them at some point or whatever, right? And pay it forward or pay the next guy forward, whatever. But I just really want to hit on that mindset. I see so many men stuck in that. Like I have a whole week of my 12-week training course that's dedicated to removing limiting beliefs from yourself like that, because that's how prevalent it is in men today. And you don't have to be like some monster big, Billy Badass type of dude to like be influential to someone. But if you have that mindset, you will never help anyone.
so true. Guys, what's next for your podcast? Where are you trying to take this thing? Let me know.
We are going to be just as big as Sean Ryan, but for dads and for men. And may take us a little bit of time, but we're going to get there. We'll be flying people in. We'll be doing everything in studio, highest of quality, because we want this to be a one-stop shop for men to level up, to learn how to be better, and just inspire them, right? Everything is mind control, so fill it with good things to mind control yourself positively. That's what we want to provide.
Perfect.
Yeah, we have the tools. The biggest thing is I'd love to be able to do these in person more often. That dynamic is absolutely magical. It's great having these conversations online, but when you really get to see someone face to face, it's just a whole different experience.
You get the energy of the body language and you connect more. I mean, human beings are relational creatures. I think 93% of all communication is nonverbal. So when you're in person, you just get a better story from each other.
For sure. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on Dads with Mics. Let us know real quick, where can people join you?
We are on every platform. It's some variation of at present dads or at the present dads or present fathers. We'll put the links in here on this, but I assume your biggest audience is on X, so we're both on X. Me personally is at Elite Sentinel X. Dustin is at Dustin the Dad, right?
That's me. Yep.
Those are our personals for X, but the podcast is everywhere. We're on literally every platform, so there's some variation of us out there.